Hello learners and viewers, welcome to Environmental Science coursework Senior Secondary labeled for NIOS. This is live e-Vidya program for NIOS and me Gupta, course coordinator of Environmental Science. Welcome you all in this program. Learners, as you remember in our last program, we have taken ecological principles to better understand ecology. I assume that you have already understood some important concept of ecology. So, now we will discuss about ecosystem and its major component, energy flow, food chain, food web, ecological pyramid and ecological efficiency, and this is your lesson number 5, ecosystem of module 2, ecological concept and issue. During this program we will discuss about concept and component of an ecosystem, natural and human modified ecosystem, means types of ecosystems, and then food chain, food web, energy flow through terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem, and we will also discuss about ecological pyramids and ecological efficiency and homeostasis and ecosystem balance too. So, first we will start what is biosphere. We know Earth is perhaps the only planet in the solar system that supports life, because Earth has water, and first organisms were developed originated on Earth because of favorable conditions. Part of the Earth which sustains life is called biosphere. So, if we look from a distance on the Earth, so the different colors patches represent represent the large ecosystems or bio, as you seen in the previous slide, that is Earth. You see different patches. So, biomes are a suitable habitat for different organisms due to different physical conditions or favorable conditions. Each biome is divided into many distinct functional units called ecosystem, because biomes is so vast. So, we study little a part of this, that is ecosystem. And what is ecosystem? Is a functional self-sustaining unit of nature to study ecology of the biosphere. And this term was first coined by A.G. Tinsley in 1935, and ecosystem encompasses complex interaction between its biotic and abiotic component. So, now we move to types of ecosystem. There are two types, one natural ecosystem and second one is man-made ecosystem. We will take little bit about these two types of ecosystem, because we will discuss in detail when we take in next programs. So, what is just go into brief. Natural ecosystem totally dependent on solar radiations, and they provide food, fodder, fuel and medicines, and they are also dependent on alternative sources like wind, tides and rain. And example of the natural ecosystems are forests, grassland, oceans, rivers, red desert and lakes, and estuaries, coral reefs. In case of man-made ecosystem, it also dependent on solar energy, such as agriculture fields and aquaculture ponds. Dependent on fossil fuel, in man-made ecosystem also dependent on fossil fuel. Example, we can take urban ecosystem, industrial ecosystem. So, now we move to the major ecosystems of the biosphere. So, humans, biomes, large naturally occurring common community of flora and fauna that is occupied or major habitat. They can be either terrestrial or aquatic. Terrestrial ecosystem contain have different type of forest, desert, grassland and tundra and taiga. An aquatic ecosystem contains marine and freshwater ecosystem. Now, we Now we move to the component of the ecosystem. We know ecosystem has biotic and abiotic component. Abiotic components have divided into three factors, that is physical factors, inorganic substances and organic substances. Physical factor includes temperature, humidity, light, atmospheric pressure. In case of inorganic substances, it contains water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and in case of organic substances, it includes protein, carbohydrate, lipids and biotic component divided into three parts, that is producer, consumer and decomposers. We will take little bit detail in this. So, abiotic component, we already know three categories: physical factors that include pressure, sunlight, temperature, rainfall, and they sustain and limit the growth of organisms in an ecosystem. Second type of abiotic component is organic substances. We know it includes many inorganic compounds like carbon dioxide, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, rock, soil and other minerals too. Organic compounds contains carbohydrate, protein, fat, humic acid, and they are the building blocks of living system and therefore make a link between the biotic and abiotic component of an ecosystem. In case of biotic component, we include producer. They are also known as autotrophs. It includes only green plants because they manufacture their own food. Consumers dependent on the food which is prepared by autotrophs. It is also called, consumers also called heterotrophs. It can be herbivores that feed directly on plant, carnivores which eat other animals or herbivores, and omnivores feeding upon both plants and animals too. In case of decomposer, they are also known as saprophytes. Example of decomposers are bacteria and fungi. They feed on dead, decomposed and the dead organic matter of the plants and animals by secreting enzymes outside their body on the decaying matter, and so they also called detrivores or detrus feeder. So, biosphere as well as biomes are a very huge and cannot be studied in a single entity, as we already said. So, therefore, we can study ecological interaction in a small pond ecosystem. Pond ecosystem shows various components, all biotic and abiotic components. So, next figure is pond ecosystem, figure of ecosystem, and component of the ecosystem, as we already said, biotic or abiotic system. Abiotic includes physical factors and climatic factors, or soil, inorganic and organic substances. Biotic components includes producer, consumers and decomposers. So, we will discuss in detail about the component of an ecosystem. First, we will take sun. It is a abiotic system, and sun is the source of heat and light, energy which are most important for life on the planet Earth, and it controls all the physical and chemical factors or activities on the Earth. Second factor is precipitation of water. Precipitation is the result of condensation of atmospheric water vapors that on saturation falls on the surface of Earth under gravity. Precipitation that is lifted or forced to rise over the layer of sub-freezing air at the surface may be condensed into clouds and rain, and main form of the precipitations are drizzling, rain, sleet. Sleet means a mixture of rain and partially melted snow. Next inorganic component is soil. Soil has many horizon or layers O horizon means organic matter. It is undecomposed litter layer of plant residue. A horizon is surface soil, layer of minerals with most organic matter accumulation and organisms. E horizon is a lighter colored substances soil. Horizon is appeared at the base of the A horizon when alluviation, the transportation of dissolved or suspended material within the soil by the movement of the water when rainfall exceeds evaporation is pronounced. Next horizon is B subsoil. This layer accumulates iron, clay, aluminum and organic compounds by the process of eluviation. It is the process by which the depositing that material on lower layers. C horizon is parent rock, large layers of large unbroken rocks which with more soluble compounds. Last layer is R horizon or bedrock. R horizon denotes a layer of partially weathered bedrock at the base of the soil profile. So, unlike the above layers, there are R horizon largely comprised continuous masses of hard rock that cannot be excavated by hand. Now, we move to the biotic component of a pond ecosystem, because we are studying pond as a ecosystem. Producer, so all green plant manufacture the food for the entire ecosystem by the process of photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight, and in pond they can be categorized as floating microorganisms and plants and rooted plants. They are phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons are microscopic organisms abundant in pond that they make it look green in colors, and organisms like Spirogyra, Eulothrus, Cladophora and diatoms are found in the pond ecosystem. And the rooted plant in pond ecosystem like grasses in grassland and trees in forest ecosystem like Trypha, Nymphia and Hydrilla. These are rooted plants. Second biotic component is consumer. Consumers are feed directly or indirectly on autotrophs, and examples in pond ecosystem is tadpole, snails, sunfish and many others. In the aquatic system like pond, zooplanktons are floating animals. Examples are Paramecium, amoeba, Aurelia and Daphnia. Nectons are also present, nectons that can swim and navigate. It includes fishes. Benthic animals are also found in pond ecosystem. Bottom dwellers like beetles, mite, mollusks and other crustaceans. In case of terrestrial ecosystem, so primary consumers are herbivores. Examples, there are so many examples like cow, sheep, rabbit, grasshopper, zebra, buffalo and many more. Secondary consumers are carnivorous animals like lion, tiger, fox and others. Next biotic component is decomposer. Decomposer are the organisms that break down dead or decaying animal organisms, and in doing so they carry out the natural process of decomposition. They can be micro or macro decomposers. Macro decomposers are example earthworm. They are the detritus feeders and feed on the soil containing the dead remains of plants and animals. They break them down into the fine particles and use as the sources of energy. Micro consumers include bacteria and fungi. They are in soil, convert them finally into the soil, simple soil nutrients. Now we move to the next section, that is functions of ecosystem. We know ecosystems are complex dynamic ecosystem and they perform many functions like energy flow through food chain and food web, nutrient cycling, that is biogeochemical cycles, ecological succession or system development, and homeostasis or feedback control mechanisms. Sorry. Food chain, first function we are talking about. Food chain, transfer of food energy from the producers through a series of organisms that repeated eating and being eaten is known as a food chain, and each step in the food chain, for food chain is called trophic label. During this process of transfer of energy, some energy is lost into the system as heat energy and is not available to the next trophic label. And number of steps are limited in a chain to 4 or 5, not more than that. So, when we talk about autotrophs, we know plants, green plants. They produce food for all other organisms of the ecosystem, and they convert inorganic material in the presence of solar energy by the process of photosynthesis into the chemical energy. The total rate at which the radiant energy is stored by the process of photosynthesis in the green plant is called gross primary production, GPP, and this is also known as total photosynthesis or total assimilation. From the gross primary productivity as a part is utilized by the plants for their own metabolism. The remaining amount is stored by the plant as net primary production, known as NPP, which is available to consumers. Herbivores, animals which eat the plants directly, are called primary consumers or herbivores. For example of the herbivores are insects, birds, rodents, and ruminants. Carnivores is the third type of the consumers. They are also known as secondary consumers. If they feed on herbivores, and tertiary consumers if they use carnivores as their food, like frog, dog, cat, and tiger. Some organisms or animals are omnivores. Animals that includes in omnivores are those who eat both plants and animals, like pig, bear, and human or man. Decomposers is another category. They take care of the dead remains of organisms at each trophic label and help in recycling of the nutrient like bacteria and fungi. So, food chains can be denoted as two types: grazing food chain and detritus food chains. Grazing food chain starts from the green plants that make food for herbivores, and herbivores in turn for the carnivores. Detritus food chain starts from the dead organic matter to the detrivorous organisms, which in turn make food for protozoan to carnivores. Now we move to the next function of ecosystem, that is food web. In natural ecosystem, food chains are not linear, rather they are interconnected and make a food web. One organism may be member of several food chains. Example, we can take frog as an example. Frog can consume fish, insect, and snail, and it can be food for snake or any other carnivorous bird like owl or hawk. The dead remains of all label are taken care by the decomposers, that is bacteria and fungi. So, next function is energy flow. The flow of energy in an ecosystem is always linear or one way. Amount of energy flowing through the successive trophic labels decreases as shown by the reduced size of the boxes in figure on the next slide. So, you can see this is energy flow. This model is an energy flow model through an ecosystem. Boxes that indicates the standing crop biomass and pipes indicates the energy flowing. NU means not utilized and R for respiration. So, at every step in a food chain of food web, energy received by the organism is used to sustain themselves, and the leftover is passed on the next trophic level, and it follows 10% rule. Suppose plant produces 10,000 kilocalories, it moves to 1000 calories to 100 calories and 10 calories at top carnivores. So, now we move to the next function of ecosystem, that is ecological pyramids, and they are the graphical representation of trophic levels in an ecosystem, and they are pyramidal in shape, and they may be three types: pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. So, producers make the base of the pyramid, and the subsequent tiers of the pyramid represents herbivores, carnivores, and top carnivores level. So, first we will talk about pyramid of number. This represents the number of organisms at each trophic level. For example, in a grassland, number of grasses is more than the number of herbivores, and the number of herbivores is more than the number of carnivores. In some instance, the pyramid of number may be inverted. Herbivores are more than primary producers, as you may observe that many caterpillars and insects fed on a single tree. At each trophic level, there is a loss of biomass, and each trophic level has certain mass of living materials, which termed as standing crop, because there is a loss of biomass. Biomass pyramid is a representation of biomass uses at the following trophic levels, and in an ecosystem. In terms of biomass, it symbolizes the link between producers and consumers. Dry weight of an ecosystem is easier to determine than the number of organisms or the rate of energy flow at each trophic level. In different environment, biomass pyramid might be upright or inverted. So, you can see this representation, the standing crop biomass at each trophic level. Standing crop biomass is the amount of the living matter at any given time, and it is expressed as gram per unit area or kilocal per unit area. Pyramid of biomass is mostly upright, not inverted. However, in case of aquatic ecosystem, we are talking upright in case of terrestrial ecosystem, but in case of aquatic ecosystem, a pyramid of biomass may be inverted. For example, in a pond, phytoplanktons are the main producers. They have very short lifespan and a rapid turnover rate. Therefore, their total biomass at given a time is less than the biomass of herbivores supported by them. So, next is pyramid of energy. This pyramid shows the amount of energy at each trophic level. Energy is expressed in terms of rate, such as kilocal per unit area or unit time, or calories per unit area per unit time. Energy pyramids are always upright and never inverted, because at each trophic level some energy is lost or utilized. So, now we come to the next section, that is ecological efficiency. In 1942, Lindman defines ecological efficiency, and he proposed 10% rule. Ecological efficiency is a combination of several related efficiencies that describe resource utilization and the extent to which resources are converted into biomass. Assimilation efficiency is the amount of assimilation divided by the amount of food ingestion. Net production efficiency is the amount of consumer production divided by the amount of assimilation. So, formula of ecological efficiency is this is also known as Lindman's efficiency. It can be represented as I T into 100 and IT minus 1. IT represents ingestion at trophic level into 100 and ingestion at previous trophic level minus 1. So, why do we study food chain, or what is the significance of studying food chain? So, food chain helps in understanding the feeding relations and interaction among different organisms of an ecosystem. It explains the flow of energy and circulation of materials in ecosystem, and it also helps in understanding the concept of biomagnification in ecosystem. So, we will take a little break. After break, we will continue this discussion.
कभी आपने सोचा है कि आप वर्ष भर पढ़ाई करते हैं, कक्षा में होने वाले प्रत्येक मासिक या त्रैमासिक टेस्ट को सहजता से उत्तीर्ण भी कर लेते हैं, लेकिन ऐसा क्या होता है कि जब परीक्षाएं आती हैं तो हम कुछ परेशान से हो जाते हैं, कुछ घबराने सा लगते हैं। क्या परीक्षा के इस भय से हम स्वयं को मुक्त कर सकते हैं? क्या इसके लिए कोई विधि, कोई मार्गदर्शक है? जीवन अनंत संभावनाओं से भरा है, इसीलिए परीक्षाओं से घबराने की आवश्यकता बिल्कुल भी नहीं है। परीक्षा एक निरंतर चलने वाली प्रक्रिया है। इनके चलते आप अपने जीवन को क्षति न पहुंचाएं। इसीलिए परीक्षा के समय हमेशा प्रसन्नचित्त रहिए, चिंता छोड़िए और चुनौतियों से लड़िए। समय सारणी बनाकर नियोजित रूप से परीक्षा की तैयारी करिए। समय का प्रबंधन और सदुपयोग करना सीखिए। तनाव मुक्त हो। जब हम परीक्षा में स्वयं से ही अनुस्पर्धा करते हैं, तब हम निश्चित ही बेहतर कर पाते हैं। इसी बेहतर को करने में NIOS की परीक्षा प्रणाली शिक्षार्थी का सतत सहयोग करती है। समय प्रबंधन के लिए शिक्षार्थी पूर्ण रूप से स्वतंत्र रहता है। वर्ष में 2 बार होने वाली मुख्य परीक्षाएं इसमें बहुत सहयोग करती हैं। इसके अतिरिक्त कभी भी परीक्षा देने की सुविधा शिक्षार्थी को बारंबार उनके समयानुसार परीक्षा देने के अवसरों को बढ़ा देती है। परीक्षा की तैयारी पूरी होने पर ही NIOS का शिक्षार्थी परीक्षा देता है। अर्जित अंकों का ट्रांसफर ऑफ क्रेडिट, 5 वर्षों में 9 बार परीक्षा के अवसर, दिव्यांग शिक्षार्थियों को अतिरिक्त समय व सह लेखक की सुविधा, मूल्यांकन में गोपनीयता के लिए बारकोड व OMR का उपयोग, क्षेत्रीय भाषाओं में उत्तर लिखने की स्वतंत्रता देशव्यापी शिक्षार्थियों को NIOS द्वारा दी जा रही है। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की अनुपम कृति एग्जाम वॉरियर्स निश्चित ही प्रेरणा बोध से भरी है। आप भयमुक्त होकर पढ़ाई करते रहें। लगातार अध्ययन से आप अवश्य अपने स्वर्णिम भविष्य का निर्माण कर पाएंगे।
Before taking a break, we will discuss about what is ecosystem, what are the component of ecosystem, that is biotic and abiotic component of the ecosystem, and we have also discussed about functions of ecosystem, that includes food chain, food web, ecological efficiency, and now we will discuss about another function of the ecosystem, that is biogeochemical cycles. We know there are more than 40 elements required for the various processes by plants and animals. The entire earth or biosphere is a closed ecosystem, that is, nutrients are neither imported nor exported from the biosphere. So, in ecosystem, flows of nutrients is cyclical, and this is because the nutrient cycle from dead remains of the organisms released back into the soil by detritivores, which are absorbed by the plant, and this recycling of the nutrient is known as biogeochemicals or nutrient cycle. So, there are two important components of the biogeochemical cycle, that is reservoir pool and cycling pool. Reservoir pool includes atmosphere or rock which stores large amount of nutrients, and cyclic pool or compartment of the cycles, and they are relatively short storage of carbon in the form of plants and animals. So, first we will discuss nitrogen cycle, then carbon cycle and water cycle. So, first we will take nitrogen cycle. So, this cycle includes or we can say completes in 5 steps, that is fixation, nitrification, assimilation, ammonification and denitrification. So, we will discuss little bit detail about nitrogen cycle, step of the nitrogen cycle. First is fixation. Atmospheric nitrogen must be fixed in a usable form to be taken by plant, because we cannot directly use nitrogen, and this fixation can be done by 3 types: lightning fixation, industrial fixation and bacterial fixation. First we will talk about lightning fixation. Lightning, combustion and volcanic activities help in the fixation of nitrogen. Second type is industrial fixation at very high temperature like 400 degrees centigrade and high pressure, might be 200 atmosphere. Molecular nitrogen is broken into atomic nitrogen, which then combines with hydrogen to form ammonia. Bacterial fixation can be done by the 2 types of bacteria, that is symbiotic bacteria or free living bacteria. Rhizobium of the root nodule of leguminous plant fix atmospheric nitrogen into usable nitrogen, and nostoc, Azotobacter, cyanobacter, they are the free living bacteria, can combine atmospheric or dissolved nitrogen with hydrogen to form ammonia. Second step of nitrogen cycle is nitrification. It is a process by which ammonia is converted into nitrates or nitrites by Nitrosomonas and Nitrococcus bacteria. Another soil bacteria like Nitrobacter can convert nitrate into nitrite. Third step is assimilation. In this process, nitrogen fixed by plants is converted into organic molecules like protein, DNA, RNA that make the plants and animal tissues. Fourth step is ammonification. So, nitrogenous waste products like urea and uric acid and dead remains of the organisms are converted into organic ammonia by the ammonifying bacteria, and this process is known as ammonification. Last step of nitrogen cycle is denitrification. Conversion of nitrates back into the gaseous nitrogen. Denitrifying bacteria live in deep soil near the water table and oxygen free medium. Pseudomonas and Clostridium are the nitrogen denitrifying bacteria and anaerobic bacteria which completes this denitrification process. Next cycle is carbon cycle, And carbon cycle includes 5 steps also. First is photosynthesis, respiration, decomposition, combustion and impact of human activities. So, these are the steps. Let us begin some details of carbon dioxide carbon cycle. First step is photosynthesis. We know green plants produces their food by the process of photosynthesis. So, in the presence of sunlight, atmospheric carbon dioxide, which is an inorganic carbon, is converted into organic carbon in the form of food. Second, respiration, and respiration process is performed by all the living organisms, in which food is metabolized to release energy and carbon dioxide. Third step is decomposition. After death of the new organisms like plant and animal, remaining organic matter is completely decomposed by decomposers or detritus to release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Combustion is another step of carbon dioxide. Burning of biomass releases carbon dioxide, and this also back into the atmosphere. Human activities also impact carbon dioxide reservoir. So, global carbon cycle is disturbed by human activities, because carbon dioxide is increasing rapidly in the atmosphere and also causing global warming. So, now we move to the next cycle, that is water cycle, and everybody knows water is essential for life and no organisms can survive without water. Precipitation is the only source of water on the earth. Water is received from the atmosphere on the earth, returned back to the atmosphere as water vapor, resulting from direct evaporation, and through evapotranspiration, the continuous movement of water in the biosphere is known as hydrological cycle or water cycle. So, we know Earth is the only planet of the solar system which is watery planet, and about 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered with water, but we also know a very small fraction of water is available for all living organisms to do their all vital activities. So, water is not evenly distributed throughout the surface of the earth. Almost 95% of the total water on the earth is chemically bound in rocks and does not cycle. Out of the remaining 5%, nearly 97.3% is in the ocean, or 2/3 part of the water we can say, and only 2.7% or almost 3% water is fresh water. Out of 3%, 2.1% exists as polar ice caps. So, thus only 0.6% or 7% is present as fresh water in the form of atmospheric water vapors, ground and soil water. The driving force of water cycle are solar radiation and gravity. So, this is water cycle. So, the natural water cycle is the continuous movement of water around the world through the process of evaporation, condensation, and through the process of evaporation, condensation, precipitation and transpiration, and the mass of water on earth remains fairly constant. So, now we move to the step of water cycle. First is evaporation. Transformation of water from liquid to gas phases by the solar radiation into the overlying atmosphere. Evaporation includes transpiration from plants. Though together they are specifically referred as evapotranspiration. 86% of the global evaporation occurs over the ocean. Condensation, transformation of water vapor to liquid water droplets in the air creates clouds and fog. And precipitation, condensed water vapor that falls on the earth's surface. Most of the precipitation occurs as rain, but also includes snow, hail, fog and drip. Last section of this discussion is homeostasis. Every ecosystem are capable of maintaining their state of equilibrium, and it's necessary, balancing or equilibrium is necessary, and they can regulate their own species, structure and functional processes. So, capacity of ecosystem of self-regulation is known as homeostasis, and ecology, the term applied to the tendency for a biological system to resist changes. For example, in a pond ecosystem, if the population of zooplankton increased, they would consume large number of the phytoplanktons, and as a result, soon zooplanktons would be short supply of food for them. So, as the number of zooplankton is reduced because of starvation, phytoplankton population start increasing. After some time, the population size of zooplanktons also increases, and this process continues at all the trophic levels of the food chain. So, in an homeostatic system, negative feedback mechanism is responsible for maintaining stability in an ecosystem. However, homeostatic capacity of ecosystem is not unlimited, as well as not everything in an ecosystem is always well regulated. If you will learn about the scope and limitations homeostatic mechanisms, then you gain more knowledge about ecosystem. Humans are the greatest source of disturbance to ecosystem. So, now we conclude this session and what we have discussed so far, we will conclude in the form of what you have learned. So, an ecosystem is a functionally independent unit of abiotic and biotic component of the biosphere. Climate, regime, inorganic substances, organic compound, producer, macro consumer, micro consumers are the structural component of the ecosystem. Functional processes and ecosystem are energy flow, food chain, nutrient cycle, ecological efficiency, ecosystem development and homeostasis. So, all the abiotic factors like light, temperature, energy, pressure, humidity, salinity, topography and various nutrient limit the growth and distribution of animals and plants. All the living organisms of an ecosystem are interdependent through food chain and food webs. Removal of any single species of the community causes ecological imbalance, and sources of energy for all the ecosystem is solar radiations, which is absorbed by the autotrophs and passed through to the consumers in the form of food. Energy flow is always downhill and unidirectional. Trophic relationships of the organisms in an ecosystem can be represented graphically in the form of ecological pyramids. The base of the pyramid represents the producer and successive tiers represent subsequent higher levels like consumers, top consumers, herbivores and carnivores. Nutrients move from the non-living to the living and back to the non-living component of the ecosystem in a more or less circular manner. These nutrient cycles are termed as biogeochemical cycles. So, main component of the all biogeochemical cycles are reservoir pool that contains the major bulk of the nutrient, soil or atmosphere. Cyclic pool, which are the living organisms like producer, consumers and decomposers. Soil, water and air in which it stays temporarily. So, this is all about topic ecosystem which we have discussed so far. We will come again to meet you a new program of environmental science. Till then, goodbye and thank you.